All right, let's talk about back-end engineering. Today, we're building a roadmap, a way to cut through all the noise and really get a handle on this huge, and let's be honest, kind of confusing field. Let's dive right in.
So have you ever felt that? You look at all the different languages, databases, and frameworks for backend, and your head just starts to spin? Yeah, you are so not alone. It is a massive, massive field, and honestly, just figuring out where to even begin can feel like the toughest challenge of all.
And this quote, this just nails it, right? There are 1,000 resources out there, but how do you pick? How do you see the forest for the trees? So many of us spend years just stumbling around, picking up bits and pieces here and there. It's not the most efficient way to learn, that's for sure.
And that's the real issue, isn't it? The problem isn't a lack of information, we're practically drowning in it. We've got endless tutorials, courses, boot camps, but what we're missing is a map, a real blueprint. A lot of people start with one course, maybe on a specific framework, and then try to build out from there, but that can give you some serious tunnel vision.
Okay, so this really breaks it down into two different ways of learning. On one side, you have what I call the framework-first trap. This is where you learn, say, Express or Rails, and everything you know is seen through that one lens. It creates blind spots. But then on the other side, you have the foundations-first approach. This is the game changer. It's about understanding the core, language-agnostic principles first. Once you get that, you can pick up any new technology, move from Ruby to Go, whatever, because your knowledge isn't tied to just one tool. It's truly transferable.
So the big question is, how do we actually build that foundational knowledge? Well, what if I told you we could organize pretty much every back-end concept you can think of into just 3 core pillars? That's it. This is our map. This is our blueprint for understanding any back-end system out there, no matter what it's built with.
And here they are, simple as this. Pillar 1, handling the request. Pillar 2, processing logic and data. And Pillar 3, ensuring system integrity. That's it. Think about it. Every single thing a back-end application does, from the simplest to the most complex, fits neatly into one of these 3 buckets.
All right, let's dive into Pillar 1, handling the request. You can think of this as the bouncer at the front door of your club, or, your application. This is everything that has to happen before your main business logic even gets a look in. We're talking about understanding the language of the web, HTTP, things like methods, headers, and status codes. It's about routing, making sure the request gets to the right place. And of course, security, authentication and authorization, basically checking the user's ID to make sure they're allowed inside. Okay, so the request is in, it's been checked out, it's legit. Now we move on to Pillar 2, processing logic and data. This is the absolute core, the beating heart of your entire application. This is where you implement the special sauce, the unique business rules that make your app do what it does. And crucially, this is where you talk to your database. We're talking about the fundamental CRUD operations. That's create, read, update, and delete. Everything from creating a new user account to fetching a blog post happens right here.
And finally, that brings us to the third pillar, ensuring system integrity. Now, this is what separates a hobby project from a professional, production-ready system. This is all the stuff that makes your application robust, scalable, and ready for the real world. We're talking about crucial concepts like caching to make things fast, background jobs for heavy lifting, smart error handling so your app doesn't just crash, and of course, all the testing and deployment practices that keep things running smoothly.
So here's a really simple way to think about it. Pillars 1 and 2, they make your application function. But Pillar 3, that's what makes it professional. It's the difference between a simple prototype and a rock-solid, scalable system that can actually handle real users and real traffic.
Okay, let's make this super practical. Let's grab an example from Pillar 3, caching. So the problem is your database queries are too slow. The solution, caching. You store the results so you don't have to hit the database every time. But wait, that creates new problems, right? What if the data in the cache is old and out of date? And what happens when the cache gets too full? This is where those foundational concepts are so important. You need to understand things like invalidation strategies to keep the data fresh, and eviction policies, like LRU, which means least recently used, to smartly decide what to kick out of the cache.
Here's another huge one from Pillar 3, observability. And no, this is not just a fancy word for logging. Logging is reactive. You look at logs after something has already gone wrong. Observability is proactive. It's about designing your system so you can ask it questions about its internal state right now, in real time. It's built on these 3 pillars of its own: logs, metrics, and traces. It's how you actually figure out what the heck is going on in a complex system that's live in production.
And you can't talk about building robust systems without mentioning this, the 12-factor app. This is basically a manifesto, a set of best practices that has become the gold standard for building modern, scalable applications designed for the cloud. Seriously, if you're going to be a back-end developer today, this isn't just recommended reading, it's pretty much essential. It'll change how you think about building software.
So you see what we've done here? This isn't just another long, overwhelming list of things you have to learn. It's a mental model. It's a roadmap. Now, whenever you come across a new technology or a new concept, you have a framework to place it in. You can ask, okay, is this about handling the request? Is it part of the core logic? Or is this about system integrity? It gives your learning a structure.
And that all leads to the real endgame here. The goal isn't just to learn a framework or a language. The goal is to learn how to think in systems. The best engineers, the ones with long, successful careers, they're not defined by their knowledge of Ruby or Go. They're defined by their understanding of the underlying principles that never change. That's the mindset that makes you adaptable, valuable, and future-proof.
So now you have the map. You have the 3 pillars. The only question left is, where do you want to go first? What's the first landmark on your personal roadmap? Maybe you're curious about diving super deep into the HTTP protocol in Pillar 1. Or maybe you want to really get your head around caching and queuing in Pillar 3. Whatever it is, you now have a guide to start that journey. The path is clear.
If you're a developer, you know that feeling, right? You're constantly chasing the next new framework, the next hot tool. But what if there's a better, more sustainable way to build real, lasting back-end expertise? Well, today we're going to explore exactly that, how to master the back-end by going back to first principles.
All right, let's paint a picture. I bet this sounds familiar. Imagine you're a front-end dev, and you get asked to fix a bug deep in the back-end. The code's in a language you barely know, and you're just staring at it thinking, where do I even start? It feels like being dropped in a foreign city with no map.
Or how about this one? Your boss says, hey, we need a new API. Go build it. Suddenly you're faced with a blank slate. How are you supposed to build that mental map of the entire system? How do you make sure you're building it the right way, with professional standards, so it doesn't just fall apart later? It's a lot of pressure.
And hey, this isn't just for newcomers. Even if you're a seasoned back-end engineer, maybe you're a total pro in TypeScript or Go, and suddenly you're told to jump into a Rust codebase? Ugh! How do you get up to speed fast without spending weeks just wading through documentation for brand new libraries and ORMs?
So here's the key takeaway from all this. These problems, whether it's fixing a bug, building a new API, or switching languages, they feel like syntax problems, but they're not. They're symptoms of something deeper. They are map problems. You're trying to navigate a new place, a new territory, without a reliable map to guide you.
So what's the solution? How do we get that map? Well, it's all about a first principles approach. This is about completely shifting your mindset from just learning recipes to actually understanding the core ingredients of any backend system.
So what do we actually mean by first principles? We're talking about the absolute foundational, universal building blocks. You know, things like routing, middleware, how you talk to a database, authentication. These are the core concepts that exist in every backend system, no matter the language or framework. It's like having a universal map that works for any city, any territory you find yourself in.
Okay, so why should you care? Why go through the effort to learn this way? Well, the payoffs for your career are huge. Let's walk through the 6 biggest advantages you get from this approach.
And we're talking about some serious game changers here. We're talking about being able to see the big picture in any code base, onboarding the new teams way faster, building new projects with incredible speed, and then there's beating syntax fatigue, knowing how to choose the right tool for the job, and ultimately, just becoming way more versatile and employable as an engineer.
Let's break that down a bit. Right away, you start to see the big picture. You can look at any code base and mentally separate the layers, the routing, the business logic, the database stuff, just like a senior engineer does. That means you can onboard faster because you're focused on concepts like HTTP and middleware, and the syntax just becomes a detail. And the best part? You'll build like 10 times faster because you actually understand what the system needs. You're not just copying and pasting boilerplate from a tutorial.
And this has a massive impact on your career long term. You'll finally beat that syntax fatigue, that feeling of dread when switching languages, because it's no longer about the syntax, it's about the problem you're solving. You'll be able to confidently choose the right tool. You'll know when to use Postgres over MongoDB or Redis instead of Kafka. And all of this adds up to one thing. You become that adaptable, versatile, problem-solving engineer that every single company is desperately looking for.
Okay, that's all great in theory, but let's get real. How does this actually look in practice?
Let's take that challenge we mentioned earlier. A Node.js developer who wants to learn how to build something in Rust.
Now, check out this contrast, because it's everything. The typical framework-first dev, what do? They go to YouTube and search for a 5-hour end-to-end Rust backend tutorial. The problem is, for a newer language like Rust, those things are hard to find, and when they are, they're often outdated, so you get stuck. But the principles-first approach, it's a completely different game. You focus on the problem, not the tool. You break the app down into its fundamental pieces, routing, validation, database, and you tackle them one by one.
So here's how you'd actually do it. Step 1, pick one single component that you already get conceptually, like input validation. Step 2, learn only the specific Rust syntax and libraries you need for that one task. Step 3, apply all the universal best practices and design patterns you already know from other languages. And finally, step 4, you just repeat that process for every other piece. Routing, authentication, you name it. By doing this, you can literally build a full production-quality app in a brand new language in just a couple of days. It's wild.
You see, what we're really talking about here is a total transformation. It's a fundamental shift in your identity, from being just a developer to becoming a true engineer.
And this quote just says it all perfectly. Learning backend from first principles elevates you from a framework-specific developer to a true software engineer. You become someone who understands the deep problems, no matter what tool is in your hand.
Because at the end of the day, the goal is to become a versatile problem solver. This approach gives you the freedom and the confidence to jump into new languages, new architectures, without fear. It makes you an invaluable asset to any team because you can show up and contribute real value in literally any environment.
So, as you go forward, just remember you don't have to boil the ocean and learn everything at once. Just start with one thing. Pick one concept. So the question is, what's the first principle you're going to master?